You may remember from the last video, I had the idea to build a thing to cover our fire pit for when it's hot, which is like most of the year. And I just used some scrap wood we had lying around to put together this design, kind of riffing off the tile of our outdoor kitchen. And I got as far as getting everything cut and tacked down, and we're on to the final finishing part, which should be easy and without problems, but we shall see. Now, since I use scrap wood, they are all of different ages, they have different finishes on them, some of them are a bit jagged, so I just wanted to take all that down and get them all pretty much the same looking. So I just sanded it with, I think, a 60 grit pad on this thing. Even with a pretty aggressive grit, it still took forever. And it was like 105 that day and 40% humidity. Monsoon season. Now with the lumber all naked, time to stain. And because I like to make my life complicated, I wanted to do these alternating dark and light tones. Now technically this pattern alternates whether the skinny diamond and the fat diamond is light and dark, but I don't have that kind of time, so it's going to be all one or the other. Of course, I'm going to use something I already have, which is this Puritan pine, and I think there is about 1 ounce in this can. And then for the darker, I have this Kona, which I think we used to redo a dresser a while back, and some foam brushes from Dollar Tree. I did the lighter one first, figuring if I mess up and get out of lines, then the darker will just go over it and you won't really see it. I had forgotten how opaque this Kona stain is. Had I remembered, I would have just done the whole thing with that Puritan pine and not worried about staying in the lines, because this stuff covers everything. Things were going swimmingly until I had the brilliant idea to put a little more of the lighter stain on, just a second coat, and then started rubbing it with the cloth, completely forgetting that the dark stain was still wet, resulting in this muddy, schmeary mess. Now I have to decide whether to sand the whole thing down and start over again, do it proper, just call it rustic and leave it be, or maybe a third option, which is make it look intentional. To do that, I'm going to add several more coats of the lighter pine finish to bring it down to the darker Kona color, and that's going to minimize those smeary marks. The result is not as contrasty as the black and white of our tile, but you can still see the reference, so I am totally cool with how this turned out. I could not find our polyurethane anywhere, but we have this Seal Tech stuff which we use for the front porch as well as the concrete wall in the bathroom. You may also recall that I wanted to put a vertical border all the way around the edge to hide those cut edges, and I just didn't have the lumber for it. But when I did the shed redo, I pulled the shelf out, and that yielded a few boards, just the kind I needed. This little narrow piece looked like about the dimensions I was looking for. Now I just needed to rip down the rest of the boards to be the same. Then it was time to cut them to length and do the bevels at the ends. With that done, I gave them all a quick sand. I didn't worry about getting it down to the bare wood since I was going to use that dark stain. Just wanted to take some of the edges off. Didn't want to put any screws in the faces of these boards, but they kept buckling every time it rained, so I went ahead and threw one in the center of each one. And since I had the stain out, I just covered them up. Now, my miter cuts might not be the best, but wait till you see how bad my bevels are. Wherever there was an overhang, I just cut them some bitches off and just sanded it down because I'm already 1000% over this project. Thankfully, a nice dark stain hides a multitude of sins.
Nobody's gonna know. They're gonna know. How would they know? How would they know?